Hi, welcome to our brand new Microsoft Azure Fundamentals Certificate Exam Dummy Question. In this video, we are going to discuss all the dummy questions of the Microsoft Azure Fundamentals exam. I'm your host Kushal Mehta from UpDegree, and let's get started. You plan to migrate several servers from an on-premises network to Azure. What is an advantage of using a public cloud service for the servers over an on-premises network? And here are the options. Option A. The public cloud is owned by the public, not a private corporation. Option B. The public cloud is a crowdsourcing solution that provides corporation with the ability to enhance the cloud. Option C. All public cloud resources can be freely accessed by every member of the public. Option D. The public cloud is a shared entity whereby multiple corporations each use a portion of the resources in the cloud. And the correct answer is option D. The public cloud is a shared entity whereby multiple corporations each use a portion of the resources in the cloud. Explanation. The public cloud is a shared entity whereby multiple corporations each use a portion of the resources in the cloud. The hardware resources, servers, infrastructure, etc. are managed by the cloud provider. Multiple companies create resources such as virtual machines and virtual networks on the hardware resources. Incorrect answers. The public cloud is not owned by the public. In the case of Microsoft Azure, the cloud is owned by Microsoft. Option B. The public cloud is not a crowdsourcing solution. In the case of Microsoft Azure, the cloud is owned by Microsoft. Option C. It is not true that public cloud resources can be freely accessed by every member of the public. You pay for a cloud subscription and create accounts for your users to access your cloud resources. No one can access your cloud resources until you create user accounts and provide the appropriate access permissions. Next question. In which type of cloud model are all the hardware resources owned by a third party and shared between multiple tenants? And here are the options. Option A. Private. Option B. Hybrid. Option C. Public. And the correct answer is option C. Public. Explanation. Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud are three examples of public cloud services. Microsoft, Amazon, and Google own the hardware. The tenants are the customers who use the public cloud services. Next question. You have 1,000 virtual machines hosted on the Hyper-V hosts in a data center. You plan to migrate all the virtual machines to an Azure pay-as-you-go subscription. You need to identify which expenditure model to use for planned Azure solution. Which expenditure model should you identify? And here are the options. Option A. Operational. Option B. Elastic. Option C. Capital. Option D. Scalable. And the correct answer is option A. Operational. Explanation. One of the major changes that you will face when you move from an on-premises cloud to the public cloud is the switch from capital expenditure, buying hardware, to operating expenditure, paying for services as you use it. This switch also requires more careful management of your costs. The benefit of the cloud is that you can fundamentally and positively affect the cost of a service you use by merely shutting down or resizing it when it's not needed. Next question. Your company has an on-premises network that contains multiple servers. The company plans to reduce the following administrative responsibilities of network administrators: backup application data, replacing failed servers' hardware, managing physical server security, updating server operating systems, managing permissions to shared documents. The company plans to migrate several servers to Azure virtual machines. You need to identify which administrative responsibilities will be eliminated after the planned migration. Which two responsibilities should you identify? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. And here are the options. replacing failed server hardware. Option B, backing up application data. Option C, managing physical server security. Option D, updating server operating systems. Option E, managing permissions to shared documents. And the correct answer is option A, replacing failed server hardware, and option C, managing physical server security. Explanation. Azure virtual machines run on Hyper-V physical servers. The physical servers are owned and managed by Microsoft. As an Azure customer, you have no access to the physical servers. Microsoft manages the replacement of failed server hardware and the security of the physical servers, so you don't need to. Incorrect answer? Option B. Microsoft have no control over the applications you run on the virtual machines. Therefore, it is your responsibility to ensure that application data is backed up. Option D. Microsoft do not manage the operating systems you run on the virtual machines. Therefore, it is your responsibility to ensure that operating systems are updated. Option A. Microsoft have no control over the shared folders you host on the virtual machines. Therefore, it is your responsibility to ensure that folder permissions are configured appropriately. As a service, resources in Azure. Which resource is an example of IaaS? And here are the options. Option A, an Azure web app. Option B, an Azure virtual machine. Option C, an Azure logic app. Option D, an Azure SQL database. And the correct answer is option B. Explanation. An Azure virtual machine is an example of infrastructure as a service. Azure web app, Azure logic app, and Azure SQL database are all examples of platform as a service. Next question. To which cloud models can you deploy physical servers? And here are the options. Option A, private cloud and hybrid cloud only. Option B, private cloud only. Option C, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and public cloud. Option D, hybrid cloud only. And the correct answer is option A, private cloud and hybrid cloud only. Explanation. A private cloud is on-premises, so you can deploy physical servers. A hybrid cloud is a mix of on-premise and public cloud resources. You can deploy physical servers on-premises. Next question. You have 50 virtual machines hosted on-premises and 50 virtual machines hosted in Azure. The on-premises virtual machines and the Azure virtual machines connect to each other. Which type of cloud model is this? And here are the options. Option A, hybrid. Option B, private. Option C, public. And the correct answer is option A. Your company plans to migrate all its data and resources to Azure. The company's migration plan states that only platform as a service solutions must be used in Azure. You need to deploy an Azure environment that meets the company migration plan. Solution. You create Azure virtual machines, Azure SQL databases, and Azure storage accounts. Does this meet the goal? And here are the options. Option A, yes. Option B, no. And the correct answer is option B, no. Explanation. Platform as a service is a complete development and deployment environment in the cloud. PaaS includes infrastructure, servers, storage, and networking, but also middleware, development tools, business intelligence services, database management systems, and more. PaaS is designed to support the complete web application lifecycle: building, testing, deploying, managing, and updating. However, virtual machines are example of infrastructure as a service. IaaS is an instant computing infrastructure provisioned and managed over the internet. Next question. Your company plans to deploy several custom applications to Azure. The applications will provide invoicing services to the customers of the company. Each application will have several prerequisite applications and services installed. You need to recommend a cloud deployment solution for all the applications. What should you recommend? And here are the options. Software as a service. Option B. Platform as a service. Option C. Infrastructure as a service. And the correct answer is infrastructure as a service. Explanation. Infrastructure as a service is an instant computing infrastructure provisioned and managed over the internet. The IaaS service provider manages the infrastructure while you purchase, install, configure, and manage your own software. Incorrect answers. Option A. Software as a user service allows user to connect to and use cloud-based apps over the internet. Common examples are email, calendaring, and office tools. In this scenario, you need to run your own apps and therefore require an infrastructure. Option B. Platform as a service is a complete development and deployment environment in the cloud. PaaS includes infrastructure, servers, storage, and networking, but also middleware, development tools, business intelligence services, database management systems, and more. PaaS is designed to support the complete web application lifecycle: building, testing, deploying, managing, and updating. Next question. An Azure region contains one or more data centers that are connected by using a low latency network. Instructions. Review the underlined text if it makes the statement correct. Select no changes needed if the statement is incorrect. Select the answer choice that makes statement correct. And here are the options. No changes needed. Option B is found in each country where Microsoft has a subsidiary office. Option C can be found in every country in Europe and Americas only. Option D contains one or more data centers that are connected by using a high latency network. And the correct answer is option A. No change is needed. Explanation. A region is a set of data centers deployed within a latency defined perimeter and connected through a dedicated regional low latency network. Microsoft Azure currently has 55 regions worldwide. Regions are divided into availability zones. Availability zones are physically separate locations within an Azure region. Each availability zone is made up of one or more data centers equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking. Next question. You plan to deploy several Azure virtual machines. You need to ensure that services running on the virtual machines are available if a single data center fails. Solution. You deploy the virtual machines to two or more availability zones. Does this meet the goal? And here are the options. Option A, yes. Option B, no. And the correct answer is option A, yes. Explanation. Availability zones expand the level of control you have to maintain the availability of the applications and data on your VMs. An availability zone is physically separate zone within an Azure region. There are 3 availability zones per supported Azure region. Each availability zone has a distinct power source, network, and cooling. By architecting your solution to use replicated VMs in zones, you can protect your apps and data from the loss of data centers. If one zone is compromised, then replicated apps and data are instantly available in another zone. One of the benefits of Azure SQL Data Warehouse is that high availability is built into the platform. Instructions. Review the underlined text. If it makes the statement correct, select no change is needed. If the statement is incorrect, select the answer choice that makes the statement correct. And here are the options. Option A, no change is needed. Option B, automatic scaling. Option C, data compression. Option D, versioning. And the correct answer is option A, no changes needed. Explanation. Azure Data Warehouse, now known as Azure Synapse Analytics, is a PaaS offering from Microsoft. As with all PaaS services from Microsoft, SQL Data Warehouse offers an availability SLA of 99.9%. Microsoft can offer 99.9% availability because it has high availability features built into the platform. Next question. You plan to deploy several Azure virtual machines. You need to ensure that the services running on the virtual machines are available if a single data center fails. Solution. You deploy the virtual machines to two or more regions. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. And the correct answer is option A, yes. Explanation. By deploying the virtual machines to two or more regions, you are deploying the virtual machines to multiple data centers. This will ensure that the services running on the virtual machines are available if a single data center fails. Azure operates in multiple data centers around the world. These data centers are grouped into geographic regions, giving you flexibility in choosing where to build your applications. You create Azure resources in defined geographic regions like West US, North Europe, or Southeast Asia. You can review the list of regions and their locations. Within each region, multiple data centers exist to provide for redundancy and availability. Next question. You plan to restore 20 terabyte of data in Azure. The data will be accessed infrequently and visualized by using Microsoft Power BI. You need to recommend a storage solution for the data. Which two solutions should you recommend? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. And here are the options. Option A, Azure Data Lake. Option B, Azure Cosmos DB. Option C, Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Option D, Azure SQL Database. Option E, Azure Database for PostgreSQL. And the correct answer is option A, Azure Data Lake, and option C, Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Explanation. You can use Power BI to analyze and visualize data stored in Azure Data Lake and Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Azure Data Lake includes all of the capabilities required to make it easy for developers, data scientists, and analysts to store data of any size and shape and at any speed, and do all types of processing and analytics across platforms and languages. It removes the complexities of ingesting and storing all your data while making it faster to get up and running with batch, streaming, and interactive analytics. It also integrates seamlessly with operational stores and data warehouses so that you can extend current data applications. Next question. You need to identify the type of failures for which an Azure availability zone can be used to protect access to Azure services. What should you identify? And here are the options. A physical server failure. Option B, an Azure region failure. Option C, a storage failure. And option D, an Azure data center failure. And the correct answer is option D, an Azure data center failure. Explanation. Availability zones expand the level of control you have to maintain the availability of the applications and data on your VMs. An availability zone is a physically separate zone within an Azure region. There are three availability zones per supported Azure region. Each availability zone has a distinct power source, network, and cooling. By architecting your solutions to use replicated VMs in zones, you can protect your apps and data from the loss of a data center. If one zone is compromised, then replicated apps and data are instantly available in another zone. Next question. You plan to deploy several Azure virtual machines. You need to ensure that the services running on the virtual machines are available if a single data center fails. Solution: you deploy the virtual machines to two or more resource groups. Does this meet the goal? And here are the options. Option A, yes. Option B, no. The correct answer is option B. Explanation: a resource group is a logical container for Azure resources. When you create a resource group, you specify which location to create the resource group in. However, when you create a virtual machine and place it in the resource group, the virtual machine can still be in a different location, different data center. Therefore, creating multiple resource groups, even if they are in separate data centers, do not ensure that the services running on the virtual machines are available if a single data center fails. Next question. You plan to deploy several Azure virtual machines. You need to ensure that the services running on the virtual machines are available if a single data center fails. Solution: you deploy the virtual machines to a scale set. Does this meet the goal? And here are the options. Option A, yes. Option B, no. And the correct answer is option B. Explanation: this answer does not specify that the scale set will be configured across multiple data centers, so this solution does not meet the goal. Azure Virtual Machine scale sets let you create and manage a group of load-balanced VMs. The number of VM instances can automatically increase or decrease in response to demand or a defined schedule. Scale sets provide high availability to your applications and allow you to centrally manage, configure, and update many VMs. Virtual machines in a scale set can be deployed across multiple update domains and fault domains to maximize availability and resilience to outages due to the data center outages and planned or unplanned maintenance events. Next question. Resource groups provide organization with the ability to manage the compliance of Azure resources across multiple subscriptions. Instruction: review the underlying text. If it makes the statement correct, select No changes needed. If the statement is incorrect, select the answer choice that makes the statement correct. And here are the options. Option A, no change is needed. Option B, management groups. Option C, Azure policies. Option D, Azure App Service Plans. And the correct answer is option C, Azure policies. Explanation: Azure policies can be used to define requirements for resource properties during deployment and for already existing resources. Azure policy controls properties such as the types or location of resources. Azure Policy is a service in Azure that you use to create, assign, and manage policies. These policies enforce different rules and effect over your resources. So those resources stay compliant with your corporate standards and service level agreements. Azure Policy meets these needs by evaluating your resources for non-compliance with assigned policies. All data stored by Azure Policy is encrypted at rest. For example, you can have a policy to allow only a certain SKU size of virtual machines in your environment. Once this policy is implemented, new and existing resources are evaluated for compliance. With the right type of policy, existing resources can be brought into compliance. Next question. Your company plans to migrate to Azure. The company has several departments. All the Azure resources used by each department will be managed by a department administrator. What are two possible techniques to segment Azure for the departments? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. And here are the options. Option A, multiple subscriptions. Option B, multiple Azure Active Directory, Azure AD directories. Option C, multiple regions. Option D, multiple resource groups. And the correct answer is option A, multiple subscriptions. And option D, multiple resource groups. Explanation. An Azure subscription is a container for Azure resources. It is also a boundary for permission to resources and for billing. You are charged monthly for all resources in a subscription. A single Azure tenant, Azure Active Directory, can contain multiple Azure subscriptions. A resource group is a container that holds related resources for an Azure solution. The resource group can include all the resources for the solution, or only those resources that you want to manage as a group. To enable each department administrator to manage the Azure resources used by that department, you will need to create a separate subscription per department. You can then assign each department administrator as an administrator for their subscription to enable them to manage all resources in that subscription. Next question. You have an Azure environment that contains multiple Azure virtual machines. You plan to implement a solution that enables the client computers on your on-premises network to communicate to the Azure virtual machines. You need to recommend which Azure resources must be created for the planned solution. Which two Azure resources should you include in the recommendation? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. And here are the options. Option A, a virtual network gateway. Option B, a load balancer. Option C, an application gateway. Option D, a virtual network. Option E, a gateway subnet. And the correct answer is option A, a virtual network gateway, and option E, a gateway subnet. Explanation. To implement a solution that enables the client computers on your on-premises network to communicate to the Azure virtual machines, you need to configure a VPN, Virtual Private Network, to connect the on-premises network to the Azure virtual network. The Azure VPN device is known as Virtual Network Gateway. The Virtual Network Gateway needs to be located in a dedicated subnet, the Azure Virtual Network. This dedicated subnet is known as Gateway Subnet and must be named Gateway Subnet. Note: a virtual network, answer D, is also required. However, as we already have virtual machines deployed in Azure, we can assume that virtual network is already in place.